Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, a pro-XRP attorney who has nothing to do with the SEC and has nothing to do with Ripple, has cited what he believes would effectively be the failure point for XRP and Ripple's case, frankly, as a result. XRP's Achilles heel, if you will. And I'll tell you right now, I'll tease you no further. I didn't really tease you at all, actually. I'll just tell you at the outset, though, what it is. It's decentralization. And so in this video, we're going to take a look at words from a few people, including this Pro-XRP attorney, as well as a Ripple employee who is just sharing his opinion on Twitter. And he actually has a very strong technical background in terms of the XRP ledger, how it operates, and blockchain technology in general. And also, I'm going to share with you at least one comment from a validator on the XRP ledger. And this is all having to do with decentralization of the XRP ledger and how the SEC's argument is fundamentally and logically flawed. So unless we get some bad adjudication, I still can't imagine that we could live in a world where XRP, as in its form today, XRP itself is declared to be an actual security. That is super hard for me to believe. Like, something will have to have gone terribly wrong for that to happen. And it's possible it could, though, which is, admittedly like a little bit scary. I'm not losing sleep over it because I think that most of the time in the United States, when it comes to court proceedings, typically justice is done. There can be some serious mishaps. I'm not denying that. But in a general sense, I think the courts get it more right than they get it wrong. Or else we'd be living in one hell of a world here in the United States. So that part's good. Now, I do want to be clear that I don't have a legal or financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I am nothing more than an enthusiast who makes YouTube videos as a fun hobby on the topics of Ripple and XRP and cryptocurrency in general, but that is all that it is. I don't want anyone to think I'm someone or something that I'm not. And so I want to start right here. And so the Pro-XRP attorney in question is Jeremy Hogan. And he ended up linking to this piece written by Hester Peirce on February 6, 2020. She is an she is an SEC commissioner, and this piece is titled "Running on Empty: A Proposal to Fill the Gap Between Regulation and Decentralization." And so a lot of what this was talking about was this idea of safe harbor and how do you foster an environment where you can encourage blockchain technology while protecting investors. That's effectively what it was getting at, with decentralization being at the core of this. And so Jeremy Hogan went ahead and linked that in this tweet, and he shared a quote from this. "Tokens that are already in widespread use on a decentralized network presumably are not securities." And again, that's coming from Hester Peirce, who is today an SEC commissioner. And so if you believe that XRP and the XRP ledger is decentralized, and if Hester Peirce believes it's decentralized, then you and she cannot believe that XRP today is a security. So it hinges on this. So when I started the video out by talking about what would be the failure point, what would be XRP's Achilles heel, this would be it. If indeed it were the case that XRP were not decentralized, then it would be XRP's Achilles heel. But in this case, it's frankly not. And so then Jeremy Hogan wrote, "Most legal cases require expert witnesses. What will they be in the Ripple litigation? Experts who opine on decentralization." So he's thinking that in this SEC versus Ripple case, they're going to have to get a bunch of experts who, from a technical perspective, can argue for or against the idea of XRP and the XRP ledger being decentralized. And so then there was this. In response to that tweet from Jeremy Hogan, somebody named Mike wrote the following. "I feel like her words," he's referencing Hester Peirce, "I feel like her words on crypto carries no weight. Otherwise, XRP wouldn't be in this situation." And so nothing against Mike at all, but I think that is indicating a fundamental misunderstanding of how all of this came about in the first place. It's not up to Hester. Not solely. She definitely had some pull, though. So check this out. Jeremy Hogan responded with the following. Wrote, "She is one vote out of 5. take that for what you will, but bottom line is she needs help. So if you want to talk about whether or not her position carries weight, I can tell you numerically how much weight it carries. 20%. 20% weight, 1 out of 5. Right? So it does matter, but it unfortunately it's not just not unfortunately. I wouldn't want to change the way that this is set up. That's not what I meant. I misspoke. But she absolutely has pull here. So. And we'll see. I mean, it could be the case that she was actually all for this litigation. I honestly, given what I've seen from her and heard from her in interviews, I'd be surprised if she voted in favor of this case going forward, the SEC versus Ripple. But we don't know for sure, and we're not going to know until this case is over. But after that, the information will be made publicly available. All right, and then another response, and I ended up jumping into this one. But in response to that Jeremy Hogan tweet, here for XRP on Twitter wrote the following. Jeremy, I'm curious about how decentralization has been introduced as if it's a historic part of the Howey test. My understanding is it's not, but it's been introduced and it's really a crypto term rather than a legal term. Don't know if that makes sense, but just wondering if the whole space and SEC is jumping the gun a bit about how much the courts are interested in decentralization as opposed to other factors, which is a perfectly fair thing to bring up. But I knew what the answer to that was, and so I went ahead and just interjected myself into the conversation. And I wrote the following. It matters because if a crypto is decentralized, it's harder to argue that there is a central authority that investors are reliant upon to raise the market price of the asset. That's a consideration in the Howey test. And so to be clear, he was thinking, well, what's this thing about decentralization? That's not part of the Howey test. But the level of decentralization, again, speaks to the degree to which there could be a central authority that investors are relying upon, and that is part of the Howey test, just to be super clear. And then here for XRP responded to me with the following. But to play devil's advocate and explore the idea, decentralization is about validating transactions on a network. It's not about the diversity of the ecosystem building on the protocol and adding value. There's an assumption that as decentralization of the governance increases, so does the diversity of the ecosystem. I'm just wondering if that relationship is as straightforward as that. I guess it probably is, but just wondering. I think Howey is more naturally about the diversity of developers and companies using the protocol than perhaps governing decentralization, which is a perfectly fair thing to bring up. I appreciate somebody like here for XRP just kind of doing their best to logically think through this. And this is why the XRP community is so valuable, so that we can share ideas and bounce thoughts off of one another here. So I think this is fantastic. And then I responded with the following. I wrote, the XRP ledger is decentralized from a governance perspective as well as a developer activity perspective. Also worth noting, validators aren't actually validating anything on the XRP ledger. They're just sequencing transactions, the order of which is inconsequential. And so I've mentioned this before too. I wish that validators weren't called validators. I think that the term sequencers, that would have been better. But either way, so however you're considering decentralization, whether you're talking about from a technological perspective, number of validators run by so-and-so, or developers building on top of the platform, however you slice and dice it, the XRP ledger is very decentralized, and that's provably true. And then attorney Jeremy Hogan jumped in and responded to me and wrote, I think Ripple needs to reach out and hire you as their expert witness. Jeremy, I am just flattered here. And then he wrote, they need someone who can explain this stuff to a layperson, and you are pretty good at it. Expert witnesses charge big bucks. You'll get paid. Smiley face. Well, I appreciate the thought, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't mind the getting paid part. I will take Ripple's money if they offer it. I would definitely do that. I don't have a strong technical background. There's certain things that I do understand just because I've been in the space for over 3 years to this point. But you'd really want somebody, you'd want like some sort of awesome IT nerd out there to really get out there and explain this and make the case. In a general sense, I can speak, just as a layperson, I conceptually do understand this, but nonetheless, I appreciate the kind words from Jeremy Hogan there. And so I got a kick out of that, and I responded and I wrote, yeah, Ripple needs to hit me up with that cash money. Can you imagine? let's knock down the seriousness of this case a few pegs by having a witness from the internet named Moon Lambo, who may or may not be wearing pants. And still, you do not know, you listening right now, you do not know what my current pants situation is, which is why I always say, you got to be careful and understand that what I say is not legal or financial advice. You don't know if I'm wearing pants and my name's Moon Lambo and I'm a dude on the internet. You don't know what I'm doing here. And I'm actually, tell you what, I'll actually, you don't know what, like, this is a fluid environment, my pants situation. So I will let you know what the answer is right now. I am not wearing pants currently. I'm wearing shorts. Get your mind out of the gutter. All right, moving on. So Jeremy Hogan also wrote the following to here for XRP on Twitter. Ironically, perhaps, our friend Hinman, oh, by the way, so I need to mention this too. William Hinman, he was an SEC director, and I've talked about him quite a bit, but he's the one that's provided quote-unquote clarity surrounding Bitcoin and Ether. But anyway, ironically, perhaps, our friend Hinman began the emphasis on decentralization back in 2018, which led to this statement. So decentralization goes to the fourth prong of Howey. And here's the quote. Reliance solely on the efforts of the issuers, end quote. That's per the SEC as highlighted by Jeremy Hogan. And so this is the document that he linked to. This is on the SEC's website, and you can see it's titled Framework for Investment Contract Analysis of Digital Assets. And they wrote, I'm just going to highlight two parts of this, I think, roughly. They have the section 1 titled Reliance on the Efforts of Others. The inquiry into whether a purchaser is relying on the efforts of others focuses on two key issues. Bullet point 1. Does the purchaser reasonably expect to rely on the efforts of an AP, with AP being active participant? That's what it stands for. In this document, I actually, it's right here where I'm highlighting. There you go, active participant. And then second bullet point, are those efforts the undeniably significant ones, those essential managerial efforts which affect the failure or success of the enterprise, as opposed to efforts that are more ministerial in nature? And so if they're talking about the success of the enterprise being XRP and the XRP ledger, it's provably the case that in terms of price action, XRP's following Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market. So already there, it doesn't pass. And on top of that, there are tons of developers out there. And this is the neat thing about crypto to me. Like, I'm not relying on some sort of sole central entity. I'm relying on adoption in general. And so for me, it's about tons of developers building on top of the ledger. I've been talking about that on my channel for over 2 years. Fine, Ripple's the most famous and popular notable one. Okay, super duper, but there are tons of other ones that are big and important, and the future of the XRP relies on all of them. And so to state that there's just, one undeniably significant one, no, that is not the case. The XRP ledger is sufficiently decentralized to this point. And then a little bit lower they wrote, here's another bullet point. There are essential tasks or responsibilities performed and expected to be performed by an active participant rather than an unaffiliated dispersed community of network users, commonly known as a decentralized network. Well, if you're talking about a dispersed community, Ripple doesn't have any special permissions over the XRP ledger. They control 16% of validators. And there's, again, all sorts of different entities out there interacting with XRP and the XRP ledger, and they really do have their own individual interests. And so Ripple has put forward proposals for changes. They proposed changes on the XRP ledger, and there was a vote, and they failed. Like, Ripple has wanted to change things about the XRP ledger, and there was a vote, and they failed. They don't have control over this thing. So it's pretty clear. Now, how could that happen if nobody else cared about or used the XRP ledger? Well, that wouldn't happen. So it's pretty obvious to me. Now we're getting to the part where a Ripple employee on Twitter chimed in here, as well as a validator on the XRP ledger. And so in response to that initial tweet from Jeremy Hogan that I cited at the very beginning of the video, somebody named Cheech75 wrote to him and asked the following. Jeremy, so does that mean it's wise for the SEC to drop the case before they look foolish? And again, this is in response to just the whole point that the SEC brought up themselves of decentralization being key to all of this. And so should they drop the case? Well, Jeremy Hogan wrote the following. Not really, but it points out another avenue for Ripple to win. If the SEC can't prove that the XRP ledger is not decentralized, then Ripple wins, i.e., if the XRP ledger is decentralized, Ripple wins. And that battle will be between two technical experts in the field. And what do you know? A technical expert jumped into the conversation. Actually, two technical experts jumped into the conversation. The first one is an actual validator on the XRP ledger, which I'm highlighting right here. RippleITIN.NZ. And this individual wrote the following. As I am running a validator here in New Zealand, and that validator is one of the current UNL validators, that's unique node list validators, that most validators choose to trust, and I have nothing to do with Ripple, along with most other validators that run the XRP ledger, the XRP ledger can only be considered decentralized. And so Jeremy Hogan responded to that and wrote the following, and there you have it. How would you argue that it is not decentralized? And then parentheses he writes, that is how I approach any argument. Lock in my position and then switch hats and think about how the other side will argue. Exactly. So play a little bit of devil's avocado, if you will. And so thankfully, this is the point where Matt Hamilton, who is a Ripple employee, jumped in. And he's newly a Ripple employee. This is one of the individuals when in late 2017, when I joined crypto in early 2018, I just learned a ton from him on Twitter. And at that time, he was working for IBM, and he may have been a software developer at the time. I don't recall, and I don't know that it shows here anymore. It just says IBM, yeah. So anyway, he's had a rather strong technical background, but he's just a regular member of the XRP community beyond that. And I just learned a ton from him. And it's just so cool that he did end up actually getting a job at Ripple. And so he jumped in here and he shared some of his knowledge because, again, Jeremy Hogan's asking, okay, so if you want to argue that the XRP ledger itself and XRP is centralized, how would you do that? And so this is where Matt jumps in. Well, there are several ways you could attempt to. And the risk is there are a lot of people in the cryptocurrency world that have done just that by misrepresenting things on a technical level. One common way is to misrepresent how the consensus mechanism works by misrepresenting that there is one single unique node list and that Ripple controls it. And so this is where I've pointed this out a number of times, especially recently. I feel like it's come up a couple times in my recent videos. It's like nobody can force anyone to trust anything. And so there's actually, honestly here, despite the fact that there's a default UNL, you don't have to use that unique node list. And if you don't trust it, I mean, you could trust whoever you want to trust on the XRP ledger. And David Schwartz even recently acknowledged that something like that could potentially result in a fork of the XRP ledger. So it would become two separate blockchains at that point. Well, doesn't that indicate that there's true decentralization? Because that's what happens with Bitcoin. It's decentralized, and so you get forks. That's how you got Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV and however many new variants of Bitcoin there are. Many of which, by the way, I think were just money grabs. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. And so again, he wrote here, one common way is to misrepresent how the consensus mechanism works by misrepresenting that there is one single unique node list and that Ripple controls it. And so he writes here, here's an analogous claim. There is one single top 10 restaurants in San Francisco guide. I think that's what it is. He wrote SF. I'm assuming it was, Ripple's in San Francisco. And it is controlled by Zagat. So again, there is one single top 10 restaurants list in top 10 restaurants in San Francisco guide, and it's controlled by Zagat. But in reality, there is more than one guide. Anyone can produce one, and the only reason any one of them has any, quote, power, end quote, is because people choose to believe it. And so then the validator jumped in and wrote, exactly, that's it. And Matt Hamilton responded and wrote, with the XRP ledger, it is even more obviously decentralized as no one actually cares which restaurants, which would be validators in that comparison, are on the top 10 list, the unique node list. Only that they all agree on the order of transactions to which there is no benefit to any particular order, just that it is consensus. And so look, if a validator was somehow acting malicious, you just stop listening to them. But outside of that, frankly, it doesn't matter who the top 10 are as long as they're not doing something flagrantly ridiculous, because the order of the transactions doesn't matter, which is why earlier in this video I cited that rather than call validators, it would make more sense to call them sequencers, because all they're doing is deciding the order of transactions. That's it. That's it. It doesn't matter. And obviously, if you're validated, then you get the voting rights and everything. But in terms of functionally what's happening with the closing of ledgers every 3 to 5 seconds, that's it. And so, Ripple has no special powers. The unique node list argument that it's Ripple's unique node list. No, Ripple can't force anyone to listen to the validators on that list. They absolutely cannot. So it's sufficiently decentralized. But I'll go ahead and wrap up there. Let me know what you think below. But I don't think XRP has an Achilles heel. Like, if it has one, I don't know what that would be to this point. Because from a legal perspective, it's logically bulletproof. But again, like I said, it doesn't mean you get good law. We just hope that we'll get good law. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.